Before I can begin this review, I need to address the draft horse in the room. Yes, there is a reason that this indie fighter has an uncanny resemblance to a certain popular IP that happens to also star cute and cartoony ungulates. I could go over the game's near-decade history, however, I would like to focus this review on the product in front of you today. If you would like to learn more about Them's Fightin' Herd's past, I would direct you to the excellent documentary on the subject made by Esteban Martinez over on YouTube. Link is in the description below. Them's Fightin' Herds is a game mostly inspired by the lineage of anime fighters that find their roots in the likes of Capcom's Darkstalkers, Arc System Works' BlazBlue, or French Bread's Melty Blood Actress Again. What we have here is a 4-button fighter, light, medium, heavy, and magic buttons that oftentimes a character's kit is centered around. There are a few universal mechanics across the entire cast, such as a dedicated anti-air attack, grabs, and a universal launcher. Each ungulate, however, uses the tools wildly different and even have very different forms of movement caked into their kits. For example, Velvet gracefully skates along the ground as if she has ice physics if you crouch after a dash, while Timid Pom can both air dash and glide safely to the ground with her woolen pompadour. The combo system itself is also pretty free and open feeling too, and there's a fair bit of expression to be had with how strings and combos are done thanks to the gravity scaling juggle decay system. While maybe not as beginner friendly as examples in the genre that attempt to boil everything down to the most basic mechanics, the relative ease of execution, tight-knit cast, and the package's smart use of various modes of play make for something that is accessible yet doesn't compromise on depth. Of course, that would all mean nothing without the means to properly sit down and learn. As someone who's only skimmed the surface of various genre examples before the Steam release of this game, TFH's teaching tools are one of the game's strongest suits. The tutorial mode does a great job of breaking down practically every mechanic in the game, from simple stuff like blocking in the magic series of ABC combos, to an outright brilliant dissertation on ethereal fighting game mechanics such as what frame data is, hitboxes, and hurtboxes. The witty dialogue, breakdown of mechanics, and the way the tutorial urges you to come back and run through it multiple times to reinforce knowledge provide it with a lot of replay value. This is, of course, only the beginning of TFH's teaching tools, as not only is the training mode filled to the brim with almost any feature you could possibly ask for, not only are replays there complete with being able to review them with the training mode data set and with pause frame by frame, but there's an incredibly powerful pair of practical modes that bear special mention to how they contribute to the onboarding process. The first of which is story mode. Not content with just the usual arcade ladder or a simple cutscenes with fight style approach, story mode is replete with RPG-inspired overworld traversal, platforming challenges to teach you movement options, and a set of combatants that were designed to help players build strong fundamentals. The simple predator that makes up the most common enemy encounters in story mode is a wolf that has a big lunging overhead attack and a slide along the ground to teach players how to deal with the high and low mix-up. Or the boss fight against Velvet, for example, is a really good way to teach people how to deal with zoning or projectile attacks. It probably doesn't hurt that much of story mode script was penned by famed cartoon director Lauren Faust and her son Ryan Faust, which lends the writing a warm and genuine feeling between the dad jokes crammed into many of the incidental NPCs. Story mode in its current state should take most players about 3 to 4 hours, provided lower difficulty levels are selected by those who are newer to fighting games, as higher difficulty features far more aggressive AI, less opportunities for healing, and show off just how cheap and powerful some of the bosses can really get. I would say, play on the harder difficulty levels if you crave that SNK boss difficulty. It should be noted that as of the making of this video, only Arizona's section of the story mode is available. Although developer Main 6 has promised their commitment to having story chapters for the other core members of the cast, progress on development on these parts of the story mode have been rather glacial over the years. The other all-important piece of the puzzle here with Them's Fightin' Herds is the online component. TFH uses the GGPO middleware for rollback netcode to make for as buttery smooth of an online experience as possible, and with crossplay to boot. This all worked for the most part. Let me preface this by saying that all of my online testing was with a network adapter and fully wired. I did have a crash while trying to get into a match. I also ended up having one match where a hiccup during the match seemed to have introduced a bunch of frame delay. However, these cases were the exception to an otherwise smooth experience. Besides that one match, everything worked and felt like I was playing with someone next to me. Classic lobby and casual match also make sure you can just get into a match without having much fuss either. But of course, that would be ignoring what may actually be my favorite lobby system in any fighting game online. I'm gonna be real with you. The Pixel lobby has an impressively stacked feature set to it. This includes things like training with other players, little chests that spawn that contain salt, which you can battle over, a battle shrine that works a bit like an arcade cabinet, and of course the salt mines. Even if popping into an empty lobby, merely walking around and finding the entrance to the salt mines to start up an impressive minigame where you and anybody else in the lobby have 15 minutes to survive an onslaught of predators from the story mode, all the while trying to mine salt, collect hats, dynamite, and just keep yourself alive. It's super fun and impressive. There's even a little surprise waiting for people who manage to make it all the way to the end with their buddies. Having all these ancillary activities in the online lobbies to warm up with and having a chance to interact with the community in a lobby can do wonders to limber you up when you eventually do decide to throw down hooves. The truth about fighting games, though, is that even if a game has all the substance fit to burst, it can drown if the style isn't there. Say what you will about the divisive nature of how it presents itself. TFH is a looker, with its emphasis on high-quality 2D animation, a colorful cast and environments, and the way it blends pixel art, flash animation, and 3D environments in a way that's stylistically cohesive. The soundtrack also needs special attention, not only for its general compositional strength, but because of how impressive the dynamic music system is. For example, when a character starts gaining momentum in a match, their instrumentation will start to seep into the stage's normal melody, meaning that each stage has a music variation in the soundtrack for each character. Being a 200-hour veteran of the Steam release of TFH, I'm happy to report that there seems to be only small compromises in the proceedings on Switch. The simple UI from the PC release seems to be the only option available, and load times can be a bit longer, but whether docked or in handheld mode, frame rate was always a solid 60 frames per second, save for points where data had to stream in, such as at the end of the arcade ladder when you fight the Predator Rush. That being said, there are some assets that are noticeably lower quality than their counterparts in the PC release. However, this is minor if it means the game gets to run at 60 frames per second when the action heats up. I feel it's also worth mentioning that I had quite a bit of issues with game crashes, particularly while specific animations played or while the game was trying to load up fights, whether they be Predator fights from the story mode or the aforementioned crash in the Pixel lobby. I did reach out to a representative at Main 6 during the review period, and they assured me that a Day 1 patch should remedy some of these issues. They aren't frequent enough to render the game unplayable, and the generous autosave during story mode made sure I never lost a lot of progress, but the game's stability is a huge issue I had during the review period. A feature that unfortunately had to be cut from the PC release is the custom combo trial. While the function to save and load custom combos is there, the file sharing infrastructure that allowed the combo files to be shared between PC players simply isn't. Also, while the game itself is feature-rich, the base roster of 7 characters is rather paltry, and the promised wave of DLC will only bring this cast number up to 11. While some may view this as good given that there's less matchups to memorize, having that variety of cast is important to a healthy fighting game. It should be noted that because of the small dedicated community playing the game, the developers chose not to have ranked play in Them's Fightin' Herds, and thus no skill-based matchmaking. Them's Fightin' Herds is one of those indie games with a lot of heart and moxie. It wears its heart on its sleeve and shoots for the stars for what it tries for, even if everything comes out a bit unpolished on first blush. It is a fighting game born out of passion and intersects at a weird Venn diagram of people that a project like this will even appeal to. In 2020, at its 1.0 launch on PC, Them's Fightin' Herds was something that had such wildly new ideas for how to take the fighting game genre forward, and came out at the perfect time for online play to take center stage. In 2022, it is ever so slightly harder to recommend it when games in the AAA space seem to have taken notice of features TFH beat them to market with. If you want a fighting game with heart, soul, and a unicorn that shoots a demon out of her magic book, you've come to the right place. If you want a fighting game that's got the correct number of buttons for a single Joy-Con and a friend on the go, heck, TFH ain't bad choice for that either.
This video is made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.